What's going on, guys? Anastasio here with FlytPath.com. Now, Insta360 is back with another camera, and this is an extension of their Insta360 One RS lineup. And if you're like me and a fan of 360 video, this is definitely a camera you're going to want to look into, because if you are familiar with Insta360, I talk about them a lot on this channel because I think Insta360 just has the all-around package when it comes to camera 360, as well as I think one of the bigger things is the software. They're one of the first to bring the modular system to the market that gives you the ability to use a standard action camera type of camera, as well as switch it up and use a 360 camera. And one limiting factor with action cameras in general is the smaller sensor, and Insta360 also came out with this one right here, a 1-inch sensor made for the 1R and 1RS core. And a lot of people are wondering, when are we gonna get a 1-inch version for 360? And that is what we have here. Insta360 now has this dual 1-inch sensor, which is co-engineered with Leica, just like they did with this camera right here. So if you're like me and you like using 360 cameras to help tell a better story, get some unique types of shots and angles, and want to take your footage up to the next level with that larger sensor, which of course is going to be better in low light scenarios, just like this setup right here. If you wanted better quality, you go with the 1-inch, but now we do have the dual 1-inch for 360. And yes, the setup is modular, so if you wanted to remove this right there, all you do is pop the lens off. Like I said, this is a dual Leica co-engineered lens, and then you have the core setup right here in the middle. Now to remove the core, all you do is slide that out, and then you have this holster which has the vertical battery, all powered by USB-C, and then it plugs into the side right there, and you also have your SD card right here. So like I mentioned, if you already had the 1R or 1RS and you already had the core, you just have to purchase this setup right here, which is the holster battery, as well as the lens and a couple other accessories. But if this is your first setup, you'll just get the entire package, which is this, the core itself. You just plug that in, slide it in there, pretty simple, and then hook up the cameras right on top. Hear that snap, and there you go. You are off and running with 1-inch, dual 1-inch sensors in 360. Now, why is sensor size such a big deal? Well, when you have a larger sensor on the camera, you're able to collect in a lot more light. Now, that's one of the limitations with action cameras in general. They normally have a smaller sensor, which means they'll struggle in low light scenarios because they're not able to capture or bring in a lot more light onto that sensor. Now, when it comes to use cases of this camera, just like every other camera, if you just want better, higher quality images, photos, and videos, you're going to want to bump up the camera specs, camera size, and camera sensor. Also, if you do a lot of low light shooting, so if you're shooting sunrise, sunset, and if you're shooting in a car, if you're shooting in real estate, and you do virtual tours with your 360 camera, this is where you'll find a lot better performance because you're able to capture a lot more light. Now, as far as camera specs go, we do have an aperture of f2.2. Now, as far as photography goes, we do have 21 megapixel JPEG and RAW, which comes out to about 6,500 by 3,200 pixels. And when it comes to video, we do have 6K up to 30 frames a second. However, when you do export it out, you're still going to be exporting out individually at 1080p. But like I mentioned, you are now exporting out at 1080p, but a higher quality video than you would with the standard 360 mod. I think by far one of the biggest advantages of Insta360 is their studio app on the desktop, as well as their mobile app. They've definitely refined it over the years as far as user experience goes. So I know 360 just in general sometimes is kind of intimidating to have to use a new app. I think it might be a little bit difficult, but I think Insta360 excels in that area. The one thing that's great about that flow state stabilization is that whichever direction you're pointing your camera, all you have to do is go into the app, and everything that you're shooting will just have a level horizon no matter which direction you're holding your camera. And of course, Insta360 is known for their invisible stick, which means if you're holding your camera out just like that, and the way the stitching works, it almost makes it look like you're not holding a camera at all. Sometimes you can't even tell that someone is holding it in their hand because of the way the stitch is. You do not see that pull in your shot. When I first got the camera, one concern I had was, is this able to be waterproof or at least weather resistant? But it was good to know that it is IPX3 water resistant. Now, you can't submerge this. You can't use this underwater. However, at least you know if there's light rain, some dust and debris. When I was out there hiking with it and I was getting dust all over it, at least you know it is somewhat weather and water resistant. Now, I do have some of the other 360 cameras from Insta360, like the X2, as well as the Insta360 One RS. And being that this is a dual 1-inch 1-inch sensor, you do have some weight to it. So as far as weight goes, let me toss this on there. We do have 240 grams. And that's something you do want to keep in mind, because if you are trying to use this in scenarios where the pole is completely extended out like this and you have it moving a lot, there is more weight here than some of the other action cameras like the X2. So even though I did use this on my bike, I didn't want it fully extended out because, like I said, you do have a little bit more weight at the end. I would normally keep this thing shorter, just like that. So at least it's a lot thicker here in the arms to support the weight. But like I said, you do have that higher quality 360 camera that's coming off of this. And of course, because this is an extension of the 1R, 1RS lineup, you do have all the benefits of all of the different shooting modes. When it comes to photos, you do have standard, you do have HDR, interval shooting, star lapse, burst, and pure shot. As far as video, you have standard video, time lapse, time shift, as well as loop recording. And for me, one of the biggest benefits of shooting 360 is that you're able to just take one shot and reframe all of your video later. That way you don't necessarily always have to focus on that one subject and try to frame them everywhere you go. You really just have to point the camera in that direction, because like I said, it is shooting in 360, and no matter which way it's shooting at the time, you can actually go back into the Insta360 software, reframe that video or that photo, export out that particular clip, and then go back in, point the camera in another direction, export another clip. This is something you can't really do with a standard action camera, because with a standard action camera, you're just pointing in one direction. Here, you're shooting in one direction, but it is shooting everything, and all you have to do is go back into post, re-export out those different angles. And there it is, the new Insta360 1RS. This is the dual co-engineered by Leica 1-inch sensor. Like I mentioned, I have a bunch of videos going over all of these cameras right here. So if you do want more information about Insta360 and all of their other camera lineups, I'll make sure those links are down below in the video description. And if you are new to 360 and you wanted the highest quality, I'll make sure this package is listed below. And if you are an existing Insta360 user and you already have the core, which is right here, Insta360 is gonna have the package without the core, so you just use your existing one. I'll make sure that link is down below in the video description as well. As always, if you guys got some value from this video, a big like would be much appreciated. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos. This is Alton Saucio with FlytPath.com. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.